Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another chapter of The Path, Gamer's Guide to Mastery. This is chapter 4 on improving mentality, which is incremental cognitive refinement. Cultivating a strong mentality is an incremental process. On the path, stress, confrontation, and frustration abound. Over time and with effort, mindfulness and knowledge can provide options for greater efficacy. As an individual's mentality improves, they are less hindered by hardship and maintain clear focus on what lies within their sphere of influence. To evaluate your mental state, conduct a qualitative assessment of your cognition. Use gaming as a space to exercise your brain and better regulate its emotional impulses. Assess. With compassion, clarity, and humility, assess the way your mind thinks about your path. What do I like or dislike about this game? Acknowledge how your preferences align with the activity. How do I think about my progress, and how do I feel about my progress? Evaluate the way you view yourself when operating in a competitive space. How do I think about myself? Do I think highly or lowly of myself? Consider the tone of your self-talk, positive or negative, and what forms of adversity frustrate you the most. Identify scenarios which produce the most negative emotion. Which people in my life improve or worsen my mentality? Just for a personal example here, playing on Australia's server or Singapore server with 200 ping, it rustles my jimmies a little bit. That's just one of the things that gets me a bit. Check the impact of social interaction. Be aware of how your talk, your dialogue, and how you express yourself can echo in other people. This is a major aspect that we'll talk about later on in one of the chapters on influence. But everything you say and do in the presence of other people influences their experience. And a lot of times people subconsciously repeat what you have said. So if you have a bad attitude about something, then other people will absorb that bad attitude as well. On approach. Refinement of your cognition related to mastering a discipline requires ongoing exercise. An approach to improving mentality is based on frequent reflection and self-evaluation. Before a training session, acknowledge your current mental state. Are you mad going into ladder? Are you frustrated or tired? You should check that. Make peace with any aspects which subtract from optimal competitive condition. Examples being stress, fatigue, tilt. I would say playing after a workday means that you're not going to have your maximum energy level. That's okay. You just need to factor that in, make peace with it, and move forward fighting with what you have. Clearly define deliberate, realistic goals for the session. That is, practice volume, duration or number of games, builds, styles, and mechanics. Today, during my tryhard session, my deliberate emphasis was to set up my 7th and 8th camera locations. A lot of matches don't get to the 7 and 8 base phase, which means that I really haven't memorized those, and I didn't even know what they were when someone asked how many camera locations I use. So yesterday, I practiced 7 and 8 a little bit, just in an empty custom game, and then for my tryhard session, I said I was going to consider it a moral victory for myself if I even set those up at the start of the match. Maybe your emphasis is hitting a scout timing or not being supply blocked. Just define that for yourself, and that'll give you a much more positive, learning-oriented mindset. Acknowledge the opportunity to improve your mentality. Example, taking losses more gracefully, positive tone of self-talk. So this is a big picture way that you can improve through a ladder session or any competitive gaming session. Every time you play, you have the opportunity to be a better steward of the tilting stuff. Maybe it does really rustle you. What you have control over is your reaction to that and how you communicate with other people in that situation. Are you raging at your opponents? Are you raging at your teammates? The next time you play, you can be a little bit more together, a little bit more poised. Consider frustrating scenarios from a third-party perspective. Example, thinking objectively about scenarios, and not hinging on subjectively salient elements. A really common example for this is having someone else go over your replay with you, or just looking at your replay with fresh eyes. Oftentimes we really fixate on the last big battle and the different kind of units that were in that battle, and maybe a few micro mistakes. But if the replay was sent over to a coach, most of the time they would look at your early game and they would say, this is a hot mess and you fell way behind. So try to see your gameplay from that angle as well. From a neutral capacity, how well did I play? Not just what stood out to me when I was in the match, but when I really look at it and put it under the microscope, what do I see? Perform a cognitive check-in at intervals or between games. An example would be checking your frustration level, your morale, your personal performance level, etc. One thing that I do whenever I'm doing my tryhard stream is I just get away from the computer between games. Maybe it's 1 minute, maybe it's 5 minutes, and I just kind of see, am I feeling good about the session? Am I feeling strong? Am I a little bit tilted? Admitting that you're a little bit tilted and then addressing that and giving yourself a few moments to calm down goes a really long way in cutting down incremental tilt, which is the kind of tilt that builds over the course of a training session. Take a post-session evaluation and highlight the major points of adversity. Example, forgive yourself of mistakes, be accurate and gentle with critiques. This is a fancy way of saying don't beat yourself up too much. You want to point out the main things that you messed up so that you can work on them for next time, but you don't need to go over every single mistake that you made. Because if you're looking at a game like StarCraft, it's impossible to play it perfectly, and your average player is going to have, if you looked at it really closely, thousands of mistakes per game. But really, I would advise just trying to find the maybe 1 to 3 common themes of situations that you get messed up. So maybe a supply block that happens regularly, or maybe a certain period of the game when your injects fall off, that kind of thing. Give yourself credit for putting forth effort. Effort is the engine which drives improvement. Well done. This is one thing that's really important for maintaining an attitude of fun with the game. A lot of people will say, well, once I get to this league, then I'll actually allow myself to be proud of myself. If you always have that as your mindset, you're never really going to feel good enough, and it's going to be really hard to push forward. Psychologically speaking, we take losses harder than we enjoy gains, generally speaking. So being able to say, hell yeah, like that was an awesome match, I feel good about that. That goes a really long way in just making sure that your overall mindset is a happy one where you're enjoying the game that you're playing. Be patient with the progress of improving your mentality. Redirecting your thoughts is no easy feat. Be true in your assessment and brave in your approach. Use gaming as a tool to make your mentality better, and competition as an opportunity to exercise your mind. You can think of gaming as an arena where, while these games are fictitious and this is a leisure activity, you can treat this as a space to hone your skills and develop some real-world skills. Dealing with adversity is something that happens in games, and you can improve at that incrementally. You can improve at your mindset. You can have more of a can-do attitude by honing this in games, so that when you get into a real-life situation, maybe there's some work project where everything is a hot mess, but you've dealt with hot messes before, and you just charge boldly forward. Hell yeah. You can do it. Be aware of your mindset and know that every single session that you apply is an opportunity to cultivate a better mindset. Thank you, and this was Chapter 4.